Come close, my friends, and let me tell you something that will change the way you see the very ground beneath your feet tonight. What if I told you that the thing you are waiting for has already happened? Not will happen. Not might happen if you are good enough, patient enough, deserving enough. Already happened. Somewhere in the depths of you, past the noise of the day, past the worry that has taken up residence in your chest, there exists a place where your desire is already fulfilled, already breathing, already real. And the only reason you do not see it in your world is because you have not yet learned to close your eyes to the one story and open them to the other. Tonight, we are going to walk together into that quiet room within you, and I am going to show you why everything, and I mean everything, is already unfolding in your favor. Whether you can feel it yet or not, sit back now. Let your shoulders fall from your ears. Unclench the jaw that has been carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. You do not need to do anything for the next little while, except listen and allow and remember. For what I am about to share with you is not new. It is old, older than any book, older than any temple, written not in ink but in the very substance of your own consciousness, waiting patiently, like a seed beneath the frozen ground of winter, for you to recognize the spring already coming. Consider the river for a moment. A river does not struggle to reach the sea. It does not lie awake at night wondering if it will arrive. It simply moves faithfully along the bed carved out for it, trusting the shape of its banks, trusting gravity, trusting the ancient agreement between water and earth. You, my friend, are that river. Your imagination is the water, and your assumptions, the beliefs you hold quietly about yourself and your life, are the banks that direct where that water flows. Change the banks, and you change the destination of the river entirely, without force, without struggle, simply by being obedient to a new shape. This is the first secret I want to plant in you tonight. Imagination is not a pastime. It is not a luxury reserved for artists and dreamers. Imagination is the very body of God moving in you. When Scripture whispers that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, it is speaking of nothing other than your own imaginal activity, active before all things, the creative power out of which every circumstance of your life is being spoken into form. You have been taught to believe that the world is solid, fixed, and that you are a small and helpless traveler moving through it, subject to its whims. But I tell you, the world is soft as wax before the seal of your assumption. It is you who are fixed in your believing, and it is the outer world, tender and obedient, that must eventually rearrange itself to match the shape you press into it. Have you ever noticed how two people can walk through the very same day, breathe the very same air, encounter the very same circumstances, and yet live in entirely different worlds? One walks through a field of obstacles, insults, and disappointments. The other, through that same field, finds signs, blessings, quiet confirmations that life is for him and not against him. Same field, same sun overhead, but two different consciousnesses, and therefore two different realities. This is the great secret hidden in plain sight. Consciousness is the only reality. Not the chair beneath you, not the walls around you, not even this voice you are hearing now. All of it is the outer projection, the shadow cast by the actual substance, which is your state of consciousness. Change the state, and the shadow must change with it, as naturally as your shadow on the wall changes shape when you lift your arm. Now let me ask you something gently, and I want you to answer honestly, if only to yourself. What have you been assuming lately in the quiet moments about your own life? Not what you have been hoping, not what you have been wishing for on some starlit whim. What have you been assuming as true? Because there is a profound difference between wishing and assuming, and this difference is the very hinge upon which your whole life swings. Wishing keeps the desire at a distance, admiring it like a star too far to touch. Assumption pulls that star down into your chest and lets it burn there quietly as a felt reality. To assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled is to no longer stand outside the room of your desire peering through the window. It is to walk through the door, sit at the table, and eat the meal as though it were already prepared and set before you. Let me tell you an old story, dressed differently perhaps, but old as the hills themselves. There was once a man who wandered for many years, believing he had lost something precious, some birthright, some inheritance meant for him. And he searched every foreign land, every distant field, growing weary, growing thin in spirit, convinced always that what he needed lay somewhere out there, beyond the next hill, in someone else's hands. And one evening, exhausted, he sat beneath a tree, and in the stillness, in the surrender of his searching, he heard something like a voice within saying, "All that I have is thine. Not will be thine one day if you find it. Is thine now already, hidden not in some far country, but folded quietly within the very self that had been running from it." This is your story too, my friend. Whatever you believe you lack, whatever you have been chasing across the years, exhausting yourself in pursuit of some external proof that you are safe, that you are loved, that you are provided for, I tell you, it already rests within your own consciousness, waiting only for you to stop searching outward and turn inward, to claim it not as a future hope, but as a present possession. This is what it means to live in the end. Most people live in the middle of their story, in the anxious, unresolved chapter, wondering how it will turn out. And by living there, in that chapter of uncertainty, they keep writing more of the same uncertainty into their days. But you have the power right now, in this very moment, to leap to the final chapter, to the end already written, where the thing you desired has occurred, where the letter has arrived, where the phone has rung with the good news, where the body has healed, where the love has returned, where the door has opened. And from that end, from that vantage point of fulfillment, you look backward at your present circumstances, not with anxiety, but with the quiet amusement of someone who already knows how the story resolves. Do you see the shift I am describing? It is not positive thinking. It is not gritting your teeth and hoping. It is a change of dwelling place. You simply move your address from the tenement of lack into the mansion of fulfillment, and you live there faithfully until the outer world, like a slow and dutiful servant, rearranges the furniture of your life to match. I want you to imagine now for a moment a garden. Perhaps you have tended one yourself, or perhaps you have only watched another do so. But you know this much: the gardener does not stand over the soil, shouting at the seed to hurry. The gardener does not dig up the earth each morning in frustration to check whether the roots have taken hold. No, the gardener plants, and then trusts and waters quietly, and walks away, going about the ordinary business of life, allowing the unseen world beneath the soil to do its unseen work. This is faith, not blind hope that ignores reality, but a settled knowing that the unseen process is already underway, even while the surface of the ground shows nothing yet. Have you been digging up your seeds each day, my friend? Have you been planting the assumption of your desire in the evening, only to uproot it each morning, with worry, with doubt, with the frantic checking of the soil to see if anything has changed? I ask you gently to stop. Let the seed rest. Let the darkness of the unseen do the work darkness is meant to do. For even a seed must be buried in blackness before it can rise as a green and living thing into the light. Now, some of you carry within you a wound from years past, a story you tell about yourself that has calcified into something you believe to be your very identity. Perhaps you say, "I am the one who is always overlooked. I am the one who never has enough. I am the one bad things happen to." I want to speak to you now about revision, for this is one of the most merciful tools ever given to the human heart. You cannot change the outer fact of what has already occurred, but you can, this very night, change the meaning that event holds within your consciousness. And in changing the meaning, you change the very substance from which your future is being drawn. Revision is not denial. It is not pretending the wound never happened. It is taking the scene that wounded you and replaying it. This time, as it should have gone, feeling now what you wished you had felt then, And in that replaying, the emotional charge that has been feeding your present limitation begins, slowly, to lose its grip. Think of the sky after a storm. The clouds do not vanish because you deny that rain fell. They part because the wind has shifted, because something has changed in the greater atmosphere. And revision is exactly this, a shifting of your inner atmosphere so that the storm you have been carrying can finally move on. Let me ask you now, gently, what conversation have you been having with yourself when no one else can hear? Because I promise you, this is where your life is truly being built, not in your actions, not even in your words spoken aloud to others, but in that constant, quiet inner murmuring that runs beneath every hour of your day. This is your self-concept, and it is far more powerful than any circumstance you find yourself in. If you go about your day whispering to yourself, I am tired, I am behind, I am not enough, I am unlucky, understand that these are not simply complaints. They are prayers. They are the seeds you are pressing into the soil of your own consciousness, and consciousness, being the faithful gardener that it is, will grow exactly what you have planted, without judgment, without discrimination between what serves you and what harms you. It simply grows what is given. So I ask you, what have you been giving it? Here is where I want to offer you something practical, something you can carry with you, not as a burden but as a quiet companion through your days. Whenever you catch that inner voice, slipping into the old tired story, do not fight it. Do not scold yourself for thinking it, for that too becomes another seed of struggle. Simply gently redirect it, the way a mother might take the hand of a wandering child and guide it back toward the path without anger, without drama. Let the old sentence fall, unfinished, and in its place, whisper something else. Not something you must force yourself to believe with clenched effort, but something you allow yourself to feel, even briefly, even for a moment. I am being guided, I am provided for, I am loved more than I know. Say it not as a hopeful chant, but as a remembering, the way you might remember, upon waking, a dream that felt more true than the room around you. Now let us speak of a practice I have shared before, but one worth returning to again and again, for it is the very heart of transformation, and that is the state akin to sleep. You know this state already, though you may not have named it. It is that drowsy threshold just before sleep fully claims you, when the noise of the day has quieted, when your grip on the outer world has loosened, and your mind floats free, weightless, suggestible, tender as wet clay ready to receive an impression. This is the hour when the door between your conscious desiring and your deeper consciousness open widest. In ordinary waking hours, the world presses in on you with all its evidence, all its noise, all its insistence that things are as they appear. But in that drowsy, sleepy threshold, the world's grip weakens, and your imagination, unguarded, unopposed, can slip quietly past the gatekeeper of reason and plant its assumption directly into the fertile ground beneath. So tonight, when you lay your head down and you feel that soft, heavy drowsiness beginning to pull at your eyelids, do not resist it by scrolling through your worries one final time. Instead, gently call to mind a small scene, something brief, something that implies your wish already fulfilled. Perhaps it is the sound of a voice congratulating you. Perhaps it is the feeling of a hand you love resting again in yours. Perhaps it is simply the exhale of relief after long tension, the relief of knowing that everything has worked out, that the very thing you feared would never come has arrived. Do not narrate it with long sentences. Keep it small, keep it simple, like a single photograph held gently in your mind. And feel it, truly feel it, as though it is happening now, in this room, in this body, in this breath. Let that feeling rock you, like a boat up a quiet, into sleep itself. What you carry across that threshold, my friends, sinks not into ordinary memory, but into the deep subconscious soil where all your outer harvests are grown. There will be nights, of course, when your mind returns to the old scene, the old worry, the old assumption of lack. This is not failure. This is simply what happens to every traveler who has walked a long time down one road and is now learning a new one. The old road is worn smooth by years of footsteps, and it is far easier, at first, to slip back onto it than to press new footprints into unfamiliar ground. But here is what I want you to understand, and understand deeply. Persistence in assumption is not about perfection. It is not about never doubting, never slipping, never having a single moment of fear. It is about returning again and again, patiently, without self-punishment, to the assumption of your fulfilled desire, the way a sailor continually corrects course against a wind that never fully stops blowing. You will drift. Every sailor drifts. But the sailor who reaches the shore is not the one who never drifted. It is the one who kept correcting, gently, faithfully, until the drifting mattered less than the direction he kept returning to. I want you to consider now the mountain, distant and immovable on the horizon. From where you stand, it looks the same today as it did years ago, unmoved, unmoving, a permanent fixture against the sky. And yet, if you could witness centuries pass in the span of moments, you would see that mountain shift, erode, transform, shaped slowly by forces too gradual for the eye to catch in any single day. This is exactly how your outer life responds to your inner assumption. It does not always shift overnight. Sometimes it shifts in ways so gradual you do not notice until one day you look up and realize the mountain of your circumstance has already changed shape, and you cannot even recall the exact moment it began to move. Do not mistake the gradualness of the mountain's movement for its absence. The wind does not stop shaping the stone simply because you cannot see the change today. Let me tell you of another old story, familiar perhaps in its bones, though I will speak it in my own words. There was a man imprisoned unjustly, cast down into the darkest pit by those who did not understand the power he carried. And yet, even in that darkness, even in those chains, he did not assume the identity of a prisoner. He continued in the privacy of his own mind to hold the assumption of his eventual rise, his eventual position of honor, and years later, against every outer appearance, that inner assumption became the very throne he sat upon. This is not merely an ancient tale meant to inspire you for an evening and then be forgotten by morning. This is a description of the mechanics of consciousness itself, true in every century, true in this very room tonight. Your present circumstance, however confining it feels, however dark the pit may seem, is not a life sentence. It is simply the last physical expression of a state of consciousness you are now free to leave. Are you ready to leave it? I ask you honestly. Because leaving the old state does not require you to change your job tomorrow, or to confront everyone who has wronged you, or to rearrange your entire outer life in a single dramatic gesture. Leaving the old state begins in a much quieter place. It begins the moment you stop rehearsing the story of your limitation, to yourself, to your friends, to the mirror each morning. It begins the moment you allow yourself, even briefly, to entertain another possibility, to try on another identity, the way you might try on a coat in a shop, feeling how it rests on your shoulders, how it changes the way you stand, the way you breathe. Think now of the mirror. You know that a mirror never argues with what stands before it. It does not judge, does not negotiate, does not offer you a slightly better reflection out of pity. It simply, faithfully, gives back exactly what is presented to it. Your outer world is this same kind of mirror, endlessly faithful, endlessly obedient, reflecting back to you the exact state of consciousness you inhabit, without commentary, without exception. If you do not like what the mirror shows you, the answer was never to argue with the glass, to blame the glass, to demand the glass change its behavior. The answer has always been to change what stands before it. And you, my friend, are the one standing there. You have always been the one standing there. I want to speak now about the shadow, for shadows frighten people who do not understand their nature. Shadow appears large, looming, even threatening, especially in the low light of evening. And yet we both know a shadow has no substance of its own. It cannot touch you, it cannot harm you. It is entirely dependent on the light behind it and the object casting it. Your fears operate the very same way. They loom large across the wall of your imagination, but examine them closely, and you will find they possess no independent substance. They are cast only by your own light, misdirected, shining upon the wrong object. Turn that same light, that same creative attention, upon the fulfilled state you desire instead, and watch how quickly the frightening shadow shrinks, not because you fought it, but because you simply stopped feeding it your light. Now, I want to gently return to something we touched earlier, this idea of the inner conversation, because I believe it deserves more of our attention tonight. Consider how much of your day is spent rehearsing conversations that have not yet happened, conflicts you anticipate, criticisms you brace yourself for, disappointments you steel yourself against. You walk through your hours composing dialogue for people who are not even in the room, defending yourself against accusations no one has made, preparing arguments for battles that exist only in your own mind. And then you wonder why your days feel heavy, why your chest feels tight, why peace seems always to be standing just out of reach. My friend, every one of those imagined conversations is a seed planted as surely as any other. If you spend your morning rehearsing an argument, do not be surprised when the day delivers you an argument to match. The outer world is not cruel. It is simply obedient. It is only ever answering the conversation you have already been having within. So let me ask you, and I want you to sit with this question rather than answer it quickly. What conversation would you rather be having? If you could rewrite, right now in this quiet room, the dialogue that plays on repeat in your mind, what would the new voices say? What would you hear if the people in your life spoke to you not from suspicion or distance, but from warmth, from pride, from love freely given? What would you say back if you were no longer defending yourself, but simply receiving? Sit with that new conversation for a moment. Let it replace the old one, not through force, but through simple preference. The way you might change the channel on an old radio, turning the dial until the static clears and a clearer, sweeter frequency comes through. I think of the stars sometimes, on clear nights, and how strange it is that the light reaching our eyes left its source so long ago, some of it traveling across distances so vast that the star itself may have already changed, may have already died, and yet here we are, still receiving its light as though it were present, as though it were now. Your present circumstances are very much like this starlight. They are simply the delayed arrival of assumptions you held long ago. In another season of your life, in another state of consciousness, you may not even remember choosing. The good news hidden in this truth is this. If your present is only the light of your past assumption finally arriving, then you are entirely free at this very moment to change what light you send out from here, so that what arrives in your future is something entirely new, something worthy of the person you are choosing to become. Let us return, gently, to the practical. As you move through tomorrow, I want you to try something small, so small it will hardly feel like an exercise at all. Whenever you catch a spare moment, waiting for water to boil, waiting for a light to change, waiting in the quiet hallway before you enter a room, do not let that moment fall empty. Fill it briefly with the felt sense of your wish fulfilled. Not a long, elaborate fantasy, simply a flash, a single frame, held with feeling, the relief of the resolved situation, the warmth of the reunited relationship, the lightness of the healed body, the security of provision arriving exactly when needed. Let these brief moments accumulate across your day like small deposits into an account whose interest compounds unseen, until one day the fullness of that account reveals itself in your outer world, seemingly all at once, though it was being built quietly, faithfully, moment by moment, all along. And when doubt visits you, as it will, because doubt visits every traveler on this path, do not treat it as an enemy to be violently expelled. Simply notice it, the way you might notice a cloud passing in an otherwise clear sky, and remember that the sky itself, the vast unchanging awareness beneath all your fluctuating thoughts, was never disturbed by that cloud's passing. You are not your doubt. You are the sky in which the doubt appears and dissolves. Let it pass. Return your attention gently, without frustration, to the assumption you have chosen to dwell in. I want to tell you something now that may feel almost too simple to be true, and yet it is the very foundation of everything I have shared tonight. You are far more powerful than the life you are currently living would suggest. Not powerful in the way the world measures power, not through force, not through struggle, not through manipulation of other people or circumstances, but powerful in the quiet, invisible way that a single assumption, held with feeling and persisted in, can reshape the entire architecture of your days. You have perhaps spent years believing yourself to be the effect of your circumstances, buffeted about by economy, by relationships, by health, by the decisions of others. But I tell you, and I want this to settle into you tonight, like a stone sinking finally to the bottom of a still lake. You are not the effect, you are the cause. You always have been the cause. The world has simply been waiting, patiently, faithfully, obediently, for you to remember this, and begin, finally, to act like the cause you have always secretly been. Feel, for a moment, what it would be like to walk through tomorrow already knowing this. Not hoping it, not trying to convince yourself of it through repetition, but simply knowing it the way you know your own name. Imagine waking and, before the worries of the day rush in, pausing to feel the quiet certainty that everything unfolding today is unfolding in your favor. Even the parts that do not yet make sense, even the delays, even the closed doors. For sometimes a door closes only because a hand you cannot see is guiding you gently away from the wrong room and toward the right one. Trust this, not blindly, but as the deep trust a child has toward a parent who has never once failed to provide, even when the child could not yet understand the reasoning behind every decision made on her behalf. We are nearing the end of our time together tonight, and I want to leave you with a stillness rather than a lesson. For you have gathered enough understanding this evening to last many nights of quiet practice. What I want you to carry forward, more than any single technique, more than any single phrase, is this deep and settled knowing. The outer conditions of your life are not the truth of who you are. They are simply the current expression of a state of consciousness you are entirely free to leave. You are not trapped in any circumstance, however long it has lingered, however convincing its evidence appears. You are only ever one assumption away, one feeling away, one quiet inner shift away from a completely different unfolding. So breathe now, deeply, and let your whole body soften into this chair, this bed, this quiet room. Wherever you find yourself listening, feel the weight of the old story lifting, like fog burning away beneath a sun that was always there, waiting behind the clouds you mistook for permanent. Feel how light it is to simply let go of the need to defend your limitations, to explain your lack, to justify your fear. You do not need to carry any of it forward past this moment. Let it rest here, in this room, and rise from this listening lighter than you arrived. Now tonight that whatever you have been waiting for is not far away in some distant future, dependent on circumstances lining up perfectly. It is close, closer than your own breath, waiting only for you to assume its reality within, to feel it as already so, to walk through your remaining hours today and into tomorrow as one who already carries the answer, rather than one still begging for the question to be resolved. This is not wishful thinking. This is the oldest law there is, older than any civilization, older than any book, quietly running beneath every story of miraculous transformation ever told, in every culture, in every age. Consciousness is the only reality, and you are far freer within it than you have ever been told. My friends, the world is not happening to you. It is happening through you. Tonight, as you lay your head upon the pillow, dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Let the old story fade into silence, and let the new state become your dwelling place. Persist in that feeling, not because you hope it will become true, but because in imagination it is already true. The unseen will become seen, the invisible will become visible, and the state you occupy will become the life you live. Good evening, and may you awaken tomorrow, remembering who you truly are.